So first up is the show Billions. For those of you that don't know, it's a show that chronicles this hedge fund billionaire called Bobby Axelrod, which is played by Damian Lewis, which is the guy that played Brody in Homeland. And which, by the way, he's British. He has a British accent. And I didn't know that until I heard him on Brian Kopelman's podcast. And Brian Kopelman is the creator of Billions. And I was a bit taken aback by that. But anyway, that just a testament to how good of an actor he is. I had no idea. The show is also about his nemesis, at least for the first few seasons, which is the Attorney General for the Southern District of New York, played by Paul Giamatti. So two amazing actors at the helm of the show, and then has a stacked cast, and with people like Dan Soder, which is cool for me to see because I've heard him on so many podcasts. He's a comic, a New York comic, and I've heard him on Ari's podcast a bunch of times. Maggie Siff, which plays Paul Giamatti's wife, and also is a top employee at Axe Capital. She's like the company's psychologist and performance coach. David Costable plays my favorite character on the show, which is Mike Wags Wagner. He's like Bobby Axelrod's right-hand man. Who else? Asia Kate Dillon, which plays Taylor Mason, which is like a brainiac financial analyst that works for the hedge fund, then winds up opening up her own shop and going against Bobby Axelrod and pretty much at odds with him. Terry Kinney plays a character, very clandestine character called Hall that does like a lot of dirty work for Bobby Axelrod. And he was McManus in the HBO show Oz, which was not the warden, because the warden was Warden Leo Glenn, but McManus was like the day-to-day person at the prison in Oz. And it's just like a dope show that I'm drawn to because I'm into finance, right? My day job is in finance, and it's something that's always interested me since before the 10 some odd years that I have working where I work at now. It revolves around finance. It has heavy dialogue, which I hats off to the creators again: Brian Kopelman, David Levine, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. And Andrew Ross Sorkin, for those of you that don't know, is not to be confused with Aaron Sorkin, which is my favorite screenwriter, who created shows like The Newsroom and wrote the Social Network movie. I think he created Veep, or not Veep, West Wing. He's also the writer behind To Kill a Mockingbird, the Broadway play that's currently on Broadway, which I received tickets for as a gift from my brother. Shout out to David for my birthday this year. And the play, I'm going to watch it at the end of August, which I'm excited for. Anyway, not to be confused with Aaron Sorkin, Andrew Ross Sorkin wrote a book which I read a lot of that I have, but I never finished it, called Too Big to Fail. And it's around the economic crash and real estate crash of 2008. From what I remember, it's been a while since I picked it up, but it was a good book. I just had finished reading The Big Short by Michael Lewis, which to me was just like a masterpiece of writing. And I felt like I was getting, I don't want to say a lot of the same, but there's obviously a lot of overlap. So I just never got around to finishing it. But either way, those three are the creators of the show. And there is heavy dialogue throughout the show, which I love. That's like my favorite thing when it comes to like shows, or movies, or writing, my own writing. I'm heavy into dialogue, especially when it's well done, when it's well written. It's like a dance, a verbal dance being executed to perfection by the people involved. Anyway, so I first saw season 1 of Billions when I was actually on my way to India for work, and I was on the plane. It's two planes you have to take to get over there. The first flight, if I remember correctly, was, I want to say like 11, either 11 or 13 hours long. And the second flight is about 4 hours, or 4.5. And it's like when flying to Abu Dhabi, it's that long. And then from Abu Dhabi to India is the other, like, I want to say 3.5 or 4.5 hours. I was flipping through the movie selections on the plane, and Billions was a show that I didn't have Showtime at the time, and I saw like commercials for stuff like that, and I knew that I could, like download it, torrent it, or whatever, allegedly. And I kind of had it like in the back of my mind that I wanted to see it, but I just hadn't gotten around to it. And I was like, well, what else am I gonna do on a 11-hour flight? Might as well, give it a whirl. They had like the entire first season available on the plane, so I was like, all right, fuck it, let me check out the first episode at least, which I did, and I was hooked. I literally watched on the way to India 7 episodes back to back, no sleep, just fucking 7 hours of Billions. That's how like instantly into the show I got. And then I saved the rest of the first season for my trip on the way back from India. I watched the remaining of it on my way back, and absolutely loved it. It was a great show. Was really looking forward to the rest of the seasons, and unfortunately I didn't have Showtime. And again, I was, I guess, like into different things and didn't prioritize watching it, but it was, again, one of those shows that I wanted to watch. I really liked it, and eventually wound up getting around to it after the 4th season had aired. And I was like, fuck it, now's as good a time as any. Let me get back into it. I have Showtime now. I had finished watching whatever else, like other shows and shit that I've obviously shared with you guys here in the podcast. I was like, I got fucking 3 seasons worth that I could like binge pretty much, which is what I did. I definitely spaced it out more than, watching a full season in 2 sittings. But I got through the remaining 3 seasons through the end of season 4, and it did not disappoint. I thought at times that it might start like falling off for me, like similar to how Homeland did. After Brody died, I think I saw like a few episodes in Homeland, or maybe like one more season I saw in Homeland, and then I just like fell off. I stopped watching, and I thought that maybe that would start happening with the show, but it didn't. For those of you that don't know, the dynamic of it is pretty much Paul Giamatti wanting to indict Bobby Axelrod for insider trading and illegal financial shit, and he's like pretty gung-ho about it. And he's the good guy, Bobby Axelrod's the bad guy. And as the show progresses, you see the bad guy turning a little good and the good guy turning a little bad, and they kind of cross each other in terms of morality. And Bobby Axelrod, the hedge fund guy, starts showing more signs of humanity, morality, and just choosing to do right. And Paul Giamatti's character bending the rules and the law, and in some cases flat out breaking the law to try to get his ultimate goal, which now he's blinded by, which is to arrest Bobby Axelrod on something at all costs. It's an interesting juxtaposition that those two characters have with each other. And by no means does Bobby Axelrod become like some sort of philanthropist saint. He's still like a cutthroat businessman that'll like sell his own mother to make a buck type of character. But he's just like less shady about it, or becomes less shady about it. And you see him like contemplating things more so than willy-nilly being flippant about shit. Then you have the dynamic where Paul Giamatti's wife and mother of his children is like Axelrod's one of, not his right hand woman, but she's like a high ranking member of the hedge fund, and a very a valuable asset to him and the team. She's in a place where she's balancing like these two worlds, and she knows these guys hate each other, and Axelrod would love to destroy Chuck, which is Paul Giamatti's character, and vice versa. And she's like fully aware, obviously, of what's going on, and she kind of stays out of their personal vendetta against each other. But it's a fine line, right? It's like a tightrope that she's walking between those two. It's such a good show, and it's like a nice view into like the dynamics of the traders on the trading floor and the attorneys that work for the AG, and like their career dynamics and maneuvering that goes on within their lawyer world. It's so good, so rich. There's a lot of depth to the show, and above all else, the dialogue is off the hook. If you like dialogue, there's a shitload in this show. A lot of monologues. But yeah, you guys should definitely check out the show. I'm going to play you a quick clip. It's like a little mini monologue by Wags, which is the guy that I told you was my favorite character, speaking to Wendy Rhodes, which is Paul Giamatti's wife, Chuck Rhodes' wife, and the employee there at Axe Capital. Remember, Wags is Bobby Axelrod, which is the billionaire hedge fund guy, his right-hand man, and Wendy is the like office psychologist and very important to the team. Definitely one of the higher ups that everyone like looks to for advice and stuff like that, and she's having like a hard time career-wise. This is like a little mini like motivational monologue that Wags like tells her after he meets her at a fancy like hotel bar. Check it out.
I don't know if you're aware, but I am also an unlicensed doctor, a medicine man of sorts, and surgeon of the drinking arts. I'm going to place a steady stream of prescribed medications before you, and you are going to quaff deeply and repeatedly, and a little flicker of the warm and giddy will grow and spread. And we will laugh about the days of yore, and we will toast the comrades who have fallen and yet may fall, and you will forget the vicissitudes of the last few days, and you will remember who you are.
And who's that?
The only woman I've ever enjoyed drinking with.
Well, then there's one thing we should do. Get properly fucking drunk.
Who uses words like vicissitudes? That's awesome. That's the type of shit that he says. That's the type of character that he is, if you can deduce it from that very short clip. But yeah, it's a dope show. You guys should definitely check it out. I recommend it. Billions, available on Showtime.